This week, we had the Democratic National Convention going on in Chicago, with all of the national politicians hitting the city, which should mean that the crime rate in Chicago is about to increase. Yeah, keep your hand on your wallets, folks. I hear there's a lot of pickpocketing going on, and that's from on the stage. Well, word out of the convention is that the Democrats are pushing a 45% capital gains tax. Now, don't get too excited. No, this is not a 45% tax on those employed at the U.S. Capitol. That issue, that would unify all Americans. Well, Michelle Obama talked about this quaint story of how we as Americans shouldn't take more than we need so others have some.
They were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed.
Do politicians even hear themselves talk? I mean, it used to be the American way about having an opportunity to make something of yourself, build something, create, innovate. Now the American way is that after doing a heist, what are the proper ethics on dividing the plunder? But I do wonder, do we even need these national conventions anymore? I mean, does anyone even watch? This is the quintessential preacher preaching to the choir scenario. Everyone just loves everyone's ideas. This is a week-long party where everyone pretends that the other person's gas doesn't actually smell. Yes, we get that you love your candidate and that the other candidate is Hitler. But newsflash, the other side, they said the exact same thing. Yeah, not everyone can be Hitler. There's nothing of substance going on. There's nothing being learned. These conventions they're preordained. The outcome is essentially scripted. I mean, this would be like having a trial against a Republican in front of a judge and jury made up of exclusively from the Democratic Party, and then touting the result as if it were legit. No. Hey, here's a thought, Democrat leaders. Why not just have the Trump trial at the DNC? Might save you on some overhead. I hear it's pretty expensive renting out courtrooms these days. Well, conventions were supposed to be about nominating who you want to be your party's candidate for the next presidential election. So, for example, in 1860, the Republicans met in Chicago and on the third ballot picked Abraham Lincoln over Samuel Chase and William Seward. Now the party picks its candidate via a primary system where the voters get to actually... Okay, maybe that doesn't quite apply here, but you get the idea. You don't need a convention if you're just going to knife your candidate in the back. Well, speaking of Joe, this convention was also noteworthy as for the first time in recent history, a major party convention held a funeral at the same time. Yes, the passing of former President Joe Biden was a sad occasion. But to help raise everyone's spirits, the eulogy was given by Joe Biden himself. Okay, that was just cruel. No one should be asked to speak at their own funeral. But hey, this is Chicago. Maybe that's the mob's way of doing things, Hey, before I shoot you, do you have any last words you want to say? That is a brutal mobster imitation. I need to watch more Untouchable movies. Well, to make things even more cruel, they didn't even start this eulogy until 11:30 p.m. local time. Poor Joe had to set up a wake-up alarm to give his speech. Hey, I guess I shouldn't judge. I also had to set my own alarm. But now that the DNC is over, the race is really on. Okay, Donala. Yeah, that's going to be my combined name for the two of them. They make such a cute couple. Donala, get on your marks. Get set. Now, go stuff those ballot boxes. Well, the Supreme Court was in the news this week after they rejected a request from Biden to allow his changes to Title IX concerning transgender rights to take effect. Now, this came as a blow to the Trump campaign, as also last week, this picture of VP candidate J.D. Vance also surfaced. I don't know the details behind this picture, but trust me, we will get to the bottom of it. As of now, I am going to assume I slept through that part of Hillbilly Elegy. I might have to rewatch it for the first time. Also, during the DNC, Obama ridiculed Trump for being obsessed with crowd size while doing a gesture with his hands, which seemed to reference a different obsession with size.
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala. There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
So you're thinking, oh, this is going to set Trump off. This is going to be good. Get the popcorn, honey. Old Trump is about to be back. Well, so then Trump said in response,
I like him. I think he's a nice gentleman, but I happen to like him. I respect him and I respect his wife.
What? Folks, no. First, an assassination attempt on Trump's life, but now aliens have taken over his body? As CNN reported,
who is that man? I mean,
all right. Well, that is our debriefing of the law.
The deadline is fast approaching, and you're dreading it like shower time on Duck Dynasty. No one likes it. No one wants to do it. And goodness knows you can't bill a client for it. I'm talking about CLE. You know the drill. CLEs. Time to be bored. Do you know it's a fact that attorneys respond to email 3 times as fast while at a CLE than while at the office? Wives are 4 times as likely to have their husbands take their call while attending a CLE than at work. 6 out of 10 attorneys will rush out of a CLE to take a call from a wrong number just to confirm the wrongness of the number, or possibly see if they were hurt in a recent auto accident. Has the FDA threatened a fine against your CLE instructor for failing to warn that it may cause drowsiness? Then Comedian of Law with Joel Oster has classes for you. Their motto is CLEs that educate and entertain. If you have to do it, you might as well enjoy it. Comedy, videos, hilarious court rulings, judges with Donald Trump here. Okay, that part was made up. Check our calendar for a Comedian of Law CLE near you, or attend one of our online courses. We offer classes that will instruct and keep you awake at the same time. It's our promise. It's our purpose. It's our guarantee. No actual guarantee inferred, implied, or given. Please contact your physician to make sure this CLE is for you. Comedian of Law with Joel Oster. CLEs that educate and entertain.
Well, thank you, Chris, for joining me at this early hour. It's a Friday early a.m., and I know you stayed up late with your Kamala Harris watch party last night, watching the Democratic National Convention. Do you want to give us your first take on, is she going to be our next president? How did she do last night?
You know what? She did really well. She articulated what her vision is for America. The thing that bugged me the most is, anytime that we talk about Donald Trump at the convention, I think it takes away from the messaging that we're trying to get out, because Donald Trump speaks pretty clearly and pretty wellly for himself, and we don't need to interpret what he has to say. We can just cut to a tape of Donald Trump being Donald Trump and go, who you want to vote for?
Hold on a second here, because I think this actually is groundbreaking. Are you telling me the Democratic National Platform is not points 1 through the last point? We're not Donald Trump. Because I always thought that was your main party platform. That's what you stood for. Donald Trump is not us.
Well, I mean, that was fair in 2020, right? That was the whole point of running Joe Biden in 2020, was a return of normalcy to the presidency, which I think was accomplished really well. But now, since President Biden has stepped aside and Kamala Harris has filled the role of nominee, that to really bring together
aside. Sorry about that. I gotta try to refrain my laughter. Step aside. So
he stepped aside.
So when Brutus just simply asked Julius Caesar, "Would you mind stepping aside here with this knife in your back?"
I mean, look, I fully believe within my heart of hearts, with the years of experience that I have spent in politics, that somebody somewhere along the line convinced President Biden and Kamala Harris to go, let's run this long gambit. Let's sucker in the Republicans and Donald Trump. Let's sucker them. Let's have, Joe Biden, who anybody can clearly see that he's on cognitive decline. We've discussed it. We are in agreement, right? This is news. And they're going to suck him in, and Donald Trump's hubris of exploiting weaknesses in people or perceived weaknesses, he's going to make this entire campaign about not having an unfit old man on cognitive decline be president. And then at the last moment, after the worst debate performance in history, Joe Biden's going to go, yeah, I think I shouldn't lead.
Are you suggesting, because I think what I hear you suggesting, and this is fascinating, is that if Kamala and all the other likely candidates would have been running in the primaries, and you had a lot of youth, the Republicans would have seen that and tried to match that youth for youth. So then you would have had a lot more groundswell. If it's just going to be Biden, well, let's throw up Trump. Trump can be Biden. And so as a strategic decision, Hale Obama decided that we're going to run with Biden. That way the Republicans would be a little bit put to sleep, and they would not realize what's going on. And then we're going to do the whole switcheroo right before the convention, and then they are stuck with Donald Trump. And
the narrative that they have purported is that old men with cognitive decline shouldn't be in the race. And the only person now who is an old man, because Donald Trump isn't a spring chicken, right?
He's 78, I believe.
78, and he's been slurring his words a little. Not comparative to Biden, he's not bad.
Right.
But now, comparative to Kamala Harris, he's an old guy who slurs his speech and is unfit for office. So now the Democrats have turned the narrative. So now all they have to do is play Donald Trump in his own words, talking about how, you shouldn't have an old man who can't put two words together be in the White House. And okay, well, that's you, bro. That's now you. So,
but do you think it was particularly uncruel to force Biden to give his own eulogy? I mean, that just seemed a little bit over the top.
What you think is a eulogy, I thought was a beautiful swan song. They gave him an hour of prime time Democratic convention for him to go up there and say whatever the hell he wanted to say.
Prime time, they got started 2 hours late, and so everyone was asleep. And I think they had to set an alarm clock for Biden to even wake him up. He probably
that's fine. I had to wake up from my nap to listen to Biden. That's fine. But I don't view it as a eulogy the same way that you do, and I get it, right? It's a good laugh. But it was a beautiful speech, and it was his goodbye to America, right? Which should have happened 8 years ago, right? Biden's goodbye to America should have been that last speech that he gave at the Democratic National Convention when Hillary Clinton took the nomination, right after Bo died, and he was going to go be grandpa, and he was going to help raise his help raise his grandson, because he knows what it's like to lose, because Joe Biden lost his wife when he was 30 and he had two little kids to raise, right? He was going to go be Papa Joe and fade away from America.
Well,
no.
What I want to kind of focus on here is, because we just came through both conventions. We had the Republican National Convention, we had the Democratic National Convention, and I am just wondering if the conventions no longer serve a needed purpose. Because it used to be, and it actually still is, that each major party can have a convention where they nominate who's going to be their presidential candidate, right? That's actually that's the important reason why you have these conventions. It's not to bring in, enhanced workers at the local strip clubs, which always does happen for some odd reason. I don't quite understand that. It's not to get together and have a party, though that's what happens. It's actually to nominate that party's person to be to run on the ticket to be the next president. Right. So, for example, in 1860, Abraham Lincoln, Seward, and some others convened in Chicago because they were going to have some votes as to who should be the Republican candidate for the presidency. And it took 3 votes. It took 3 ballots. Lincoln did not win on the first one, did not win on the second one. They finally got a groundswell support, and Lincoln won with the 3rd ballot. And then they also had to pick who was going to be the vice president nominee. Now, this isn't dictated by any law. Each political party gets to have their own rules and how they select their nominee. As recently as 1968, also in Chicago, the Democrats held a convention, which was a brokered convention, which meant you went to the convention, you didn't know who your nominee was going to be, and they selected Herbert Humphrey in 1968. Chris, what role do the conventions actually play today? Because I don't think it's the same role where you actually have debate on who's going to be the nominee.
You know, when I used to go to the conventions, the daytime stuff was all these classes, right? I learned about, there's a company called Van, which helped with voter registration and voter tracking and making sure that you were touching your vote. Like, it was a door knocking software. We called it Field. You know, Field is when you go out and you knock doors or you make phone calls or you do letter writing campaign. We used to say, you know, Field wins elections. Right. That's how you do it. So we'd have these technology companies come in, and teach us about their program and how to run reports in Van and how to make sure that, you know, you're hitting the right houses and you're targeting and how to do different targeting stuff when you get the voter file from the secretaries of state or local election authorities. They would have panels on what's the future in, you know, back in 2008, you know, which was the last time I went to the DNC. We had a Secretary of State panel where they came in and talk about voting rights and what's going on and anti-suppression techniques and stuff to that effect. So all during the day, there's all these classes, there's exhibitor booths. You know, you've been to conferences, right? Like ACLEA, right? You've been to these CLE conferences where you have the vendor booths, you have the classes during the day. Everybody kind of goes and presses the flesh and, you know, wants to get together and talk about how they could do business together, or, you know, you hawk your wares, you know, come to my this, do my that. That's during the day. The nighttime, you know, speeches and whatnot, like the keynotes and all that jazz. I mean, that's just a big backslapping. Who can we get? Like, look at both conventions, right? Celebrities are showing up. People are having a good time. You're getting with like-minded individuals and celebrating your like-mindedness in a safe space where you're not going to have a very taxing discussion. It's not like Thanksgiving with your aunt, where she comes in and goes, you know, that Donald Trump, he is just such a good, godly Christian man. And I think that Jesus himself would vote for Donald Trump. And I have to sit there and be like, Doris, we're not doing this.
Hey,
we're not doing this,
do
Doris.
not knock Donald Trump's Christianity. He said his favorite Bible book is 2 Corinthians. So don't be knocking him. 2 Corinthians.
I really trust the guy who created his own edition of the Bible to sell.
King James did. Are you going to knock King James?
I do every time.
Okay.
Last time I checked, though, King James didn't put the Constitution in the Bill of Rights and then sell it for $60 to fund a presidential campaign.
Only because he didn't think of the idea. I'm sure if he had thought about it, King James probably would have done that.
Absolutely. That's why we use the New Jerusalem version.
Yes. So the Democratic National Convention, the Republican National Convention, I mean, do they still serve a purpose? I get what you're saying, that it's a time for everyone to kind of get together. It's like a pep rally. We're gonna bring our team in, right? We're gonna get everyone excited to go out there and do the legwork now to bring this victory home. I do like some of the reporting of these conventions and how two-faced people could be. Now, Chris, I know you are not two-faced, never have been. I have never been two-faced. At least that's our goal. But I'm sure sometimes we don't quite meet up to that goal, and we're maybe a little bit hypocritical. But the particular story I'm thinking about is during the Republican National Convention, my hero, Hulk Hogan, showed up. And man, I'm talking, everyone's so excited. Like, this is Hulk Hogan. It was like going back to the 80s and the 90s and ripping the shirt. And I listened to these podcasters talk about how fun that was. And then I listened to those same podcasters this week talking about the celebrities that came to the Democratic National Convention. What was their take? Oh, this is stupid. Why do we want to hear from some pompous Hollywood person as if they have anything to add to the political arena? Well, are you not the same person who just, glowed in the basket of Hulk Hogan? It seemed a little bit hypocritical to me that one party can bring in their celebrities and the other party cannot bring in their celebrities. But hey, those are
like come on. I get it, like celebrities like raw, like that really drive people, and I understand the power of celebrity, right? There's a lot of you have a platform and you have money to platform, and people think you're important because you were Jason Bourne or Danny Ocean, whatever. But like, I really feel that celebrities are one of the biggest problems in politics, because politicians will then aspire to be like the celebrity, and you can't be a celebrity. You shouldn't be a celebrity and a politician. Politicians by default need to be unpopular. They need to not like kowtow to some sort of idea that they need to be everybody's best friend.
Well, hold on to that thought.
You can't make great decisions that are going to affect millions of people and think that you're going to be their friend afterwards.
Well, Chris, hold on to that thought. We're going to dig into that in a few weeks here. And we're going to do an exclusive podcast, the entire podcast, on Socrates' idea that democracy is for the birds. And I got to tell you, the more I'm researching Socrates, the more I think about it, I kind of think he's onto something. I mean, I like democracy. Don't get me wrong. It's the best system out there. But this whole idea of the masses know who's best to lead us. No, we like our celebrities. We like our 30-second, bit that we find funny on Facebook. We don't have the mindset or the intelligence to know who is the best leader for the free world. We just know, oh, that person looks cute. That person looks nice. I think that guy looks like he would know how to push the button to send this world into nuclear war. I think he looks like a person. We don't know. The people are stupid. Why are they? We're going to save that for a later podcast, because I don't want to sound too democratic or people might cancel me. I do like democracy because it's the best system out there to prevent corruption. That's not the same thing as saying democracy is the best way to find the best leader. It's the best way to avoid corruption. But hey, we're going to dig into that in a couple of weeks. Hey, Chris, now let's look forward. Post-convention.
All right.
So I saw the Vegas betting lines this last week, and they now have Donald Trump as being, I think, a 5-point favorite over Kamala Harris to win the presidency. Now, put that in terms of your football team. If my football team had a 55% chance to win as compared to the other team, where actually it'd be a 53 to 48% chance to win, it's a toss-up. It's a close game. That being said, now that I think the Kamala bump is over with, she has gotten a free pass for the last month. I think some of it is the Republicans didn't want to play their hand too early. And now I think you're going to see a pedal to the metal. You're going to see a rush to the end. How do you see this election playing out? Any thoughts on what to look for over the next few months?
I mean, I think it's really, really, really going to come down to the debates. The conventions, right, are just a giant party to celebrate who we are. Like you come out of the RNC or the DNC and everybody's like, my candidate's going to win. Well, yeah, you just sat in a room of 50,000 like-minded people and chanted lock her up or lock him up or whatever your Trumpomania is going to run wild over you, brother. Whatever it's going to look like, right? So coming out of a convention is such a skewed state of saying, man, my candidate's going to win. No, let's get to the debates. That's, I think, what's really going to decide, because nobody's paying attention right now to commercial. And good gravy, the number of political commercials in Arizona right now, it literally ruined Olympics for myself and my wife, because every time a commercial came on, because you're watching on streaming services now, you're not watching just on regular cable TV. So we're watching on the Peacock streaming service, and 4 out of the 5, even 5 out of the 5 commercials were all political ads. Hey. And so that turns people off. Like, we're trying to enjoy the Olympics. We're trying to have that, but we have all these dumb political ads. So now coming out of the convention, what are we going to look to? I am clearly in, the Harris Walls camp, but I still want to go see what the debate does to see how she does in the debates versus Donald Trump. And I think a lot of people that I've spoken to, being here in Arizona and running in very conservative cliques in the way that I do in the personal life that I have, a lot of people are asking, like, what does this look like? And you're going to look to the debates, and if you have Trump debating Kamala the way that he debated Hillary, he's going to lose ground.
All right, I agree with that. And if he debates Kamala like he did Biden, we might see a different outcome. I think I'm
Right.
tracking with what you're saying. My
Right.
take is going to be I don't have that bad of a memory. I am getting to the age where if I find myself in the middle of a stairs, I don't know if I'm going up or coming down. I'm kind of getting to that age, but I do remember back when Kamala ran for president, and I remember the debates that she was in, and I remember
yeah.
how bad she did. She was not a good candidate when she ran, and this is when Biden took the nomination. In fact, she had
2020.
to drop out. And so it was not a good look. She did not have to campaign this time around. She has not had a campaign yet. She's just had to read teleprompters and scripts. When you get to the debate, that's when you were going to see the real Kamala. Will she have learned her lesson? Will she have improved? And more to your point, will the Donald even allow Kamala to be seen? Because I think she has a pretty bad record when it comes to, number one, being the border czar. I remember when they trumpeted her as the border czar. Again, my memory is not so faulty. I don't remember that coming right from the Democratic platform's mouth that she is the border czar. The border, everyone, liberals and conservatives recognize that is a disaster right now. Trump has got to say she is responsible for that. Secondly, I think what's going to happen on Trump's side is he's going to have to make Kamala defend the Harris-Biden presidency because she was on that team over I did not misspeak. I did not stumble. I said that intentionally. The Harris-Biden presidency, she was there the last 4 years. She can't hide from that record. The record inflation that we have right now, or not the record, the horrible inflation we have right now. She actually cast the deciding vote. It was a 50-50 deadlock in the Senate.
Yeah.
She was a deciding vote. She has to own up to inflation over the last 4 years and explain that vote. If Trump does not allow her to explain it, that's on Trump. And Trump's going to lose the election. If Trump forces her to defend the record, I think we're going to see a Trump presidency. At least that's how I am viewing this, and I'm calling it right now.
Yep.
I'm taking the over. I think Trump is going to win here because he has learned his lesson. In fact, to prove my point, he has learned his lesson. I don't know if you caught this, but Obama gave a speech and he ridiculed Trump. In fact, he said, he did this with his hands. He said, Trump is just engrossed with his crowd size. Now,
Right,
Chris, when you do this with your hands and you're trying to and you're making any joke about size, you're not trying to draw people's minds to crowds, right? He was sending a different message there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Marco Rubio, that line that he gave. So that's what Obama said about Trump. How did Trump respond to Obama? He said, I like him.
Actually.
He said, I think he's a great gentleman. And to which the CNN commentator said, what happened to Trump? If Trump has learned his lesson, then we are going to see a Trump presidency. If Trump did not learn his lesson, I think we're going to see a Kamala presidency. The issue is, what Trump are we going to see? So in that regard, I am going to say this is Trump's presidency to lose, which he is fully equipped to lose. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
See, I think you're going to have a difficult time convincing border crisis, right? Taking border crisis. You're going to have a difficult time convincing people that there's a border crisis because there's a lot of statistical data to counteract just the overwhelming there's a border crisis. You're not seeing I think inflation is going to be a discussion point. I think it's going to be a big one, and if Trump was smart, that's what he would focus on, because you could call her the border czar all you want. Go right ahead, call her a border czar, but there's one swing state along the border, and so if you're going to try to win Arizona and call it a border crisis, you're going to have to spend an inordinate amount of time trying to convince people in Arizona that there's a border crisis. There's two very distinct camps. Some people think there's a border crisis. Some people think that there's not a border crisis in Arizona. It's kind of a moot point. It's only really being fought in Washington right now. So if you want to connect with everyday center voters, which is where Trump needs to dig up people, right? Because you have your far rights that are energized and love Trump. So you don't need to convince them to vote for Trump. And you got your lefts that are energized for Kamala Harris, and you're not going to get them to vote for Trump. So what you're fighting over, right, is this middle ground of people that need to have need to be talked to about the issues that are facing them right now. And inflation is the big one, right? Inflation's the one. Cost of food, cost of gas, cost of cars, cost of housing crisis, right? If you are Trump and you want to win, you need to hang inflation. That's what you need to do. But you need to do it in a way that does not somehow give wiggle room to the Democrats to say, like, no. The budget is a House thing. So the reason why we have inflation problems is because the House, under the leadership of Kevin McCarthy and Mike Johnson, couldn't get their stuff together, so we had to pass a bunch of executive orders. If you give the wiggle room for them to put the blame on the House, right, and if you don't focus on the Inflation Reduction Act and you don't focus on the Medicare Act and all that stuff, Trump has to navigate this very narrow path of being able to connect to middle-of-the-road voters, your Idahoans and your Iowans and your Nebraskans and your North Dakotans and all that stuff, to get them on board, especially in your swing state people, right? Your Pennsylvanias, your Wisconsins, your Arizonas, all that stuff. You have to touch them where it really does hurt, and that's inflation. That's not border crisis.
So I think that's a really astute analysis. I think you're saying it's going to come down to the economy at the end of the day,
Right.
and so to focus on inflation, because that seems to be the huge problem right now with the rising prices. And so if he can keep on message, that could be
Right.
the winning message. All right. Do you want to give a prediction? What do you think? Are you going to take Kamala and the
Absolutely.
the underdog, or you
Absolutely.
think Trump is going to
Yep.
pull it off?
I don't think Trump's going to pull it off because, and I may be wrong, right? I've been known to be wrong. I was wrong before, but he's not going to be able to focus on inflation. He's not going to. Trump is a off the cuff kind of, he likes to raw dog debates and just go out there and talk about the things that he likes to talk about. And I don't think he would be prepared enough, because Kamala Harris is going to over prepare. She's a prosecutor, right? She's had cases in front of the Supreme Court. You know what type of preparation that goes into that.
She
She's
wasn't
not
a
going
good debater 4 years ago.
but she was a great debater 4 years ago. She was a bad debater when she was in the presidential race.
Right, that's what I'm
when
talking
she went
about.
up against Mike Pence, and it was just her and Mike, she did a great job against Mike Pence. So she may not be a good debater when there's 8 other people competing for the spotlight, but when it was just her and Mike Pence, she did great. And the problem is going to be if Trump thinks he's going to goat Kamala the way that he goated Hillary Clinton, it's not going to work.
Right.
Right, because we've made those mistakes and we've learned.
So he needs to stay on point, on
On
topic, and just to hit it.
Right.
It's all about the inflation. It's all about throwing free money into the economy, which, again, I got to ask myself, if you're going to have the people vote, and the people, do they really understand economics, or do they understand this message of, we'll give you free stuff? Giving people free stuff, it just throws money into the economy, and it's going to just jack up inflation. Because, newsflash, businesses are greedy, and businesses will raise prices if they have a bunch of free money. That a very, very astute person.
Businesses will raise prices anyways, regardless of whether or not people have
they
money
won't
or
raise
not.
prices if people don't have money to spend it. So at a certain
Then
level,
why
it
are
has to
we
be
in the middle of record profits for all the major corporations?
right? Well, they've thrown in a bunch of money in there,
But
free money.
The
and
middle
so that's
class
why,
is no better off. The middle class is no better off than we were. We're actually worse off than we were 20 years ago.
I'm just talking about.
But yet,
if-
corporations have record profits.
Right, I'm
So
just-
they'll raise prices no matter what. Business is the enemy of the American people. by the way.
No.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely. Big business is the enemy of the American people.
Absolutely not. I don't know about big. You
Absolutely.
threw it in big there, and so you might be trying to drum up a few businesses that are really bad and corrupt. So I'll give you that. But businesses, ingenuity, creativity, bringing value, having the American dream. Like, I'm not going to say I'm living the American dream, but I like my life. I wanted to form my own business. I wanted to employ people and just go out there and have an idea and pursue it. You want that in America, where you can have these ideas and pursue them and live out your dream without all these government regulations, without these things that kind of hang around your neck and drag you down. But do businesses take advantage of that? Of course. All right, I am already off topic. I think this is going to be
We
a
always are.
fascinating presidency to watch. I don't know who's actually going to win. I put my vote with Trump because he surprised me so far because of how he has stayed on point. Can Kamala knock him off point? If she is successful, she will be the next president, in my opinion. We'll have to wait and see. All right, there are a couple of interesting cases that I want us to jump on, because I want us to talk about this issue of the various roles that lawyers play. So my son surprised me the other day when he said that he might be thinking about going to law school. Okay, well, I didn't really realize that was in the cards. I know I had mentioned before that I thought he would make a great lawyer. Kind of surprised me that he said he actually was thinking about it. Okay. Lawyers play we have various different hats, right? We could be going to a Democratic National Convention where we're trying to analyze what kind of laws should we pass. Maybe you teach lawyers. Maybe you work for a business where you advise them on what might be the legal implications of all different kinds of hats that lawyers wear. Maybe you're an Abraham Lincoln and you want to go to court and defend the guilty because you want to play that role in our judicial system. Okay. So that being said, let's now go to Disney World. You're a Disney fan, right? Have you not gone to? You've been to Disney recently.
I am. I love Disney, man.
Have you?
It's my jam.
Have you survived?
I
Can you pay the mortgage? Did you lose the house? Do you still have a place to lay your head? Is what I'm trying to ask.
I did. I still have a house to live in.
Good.
Barely.
All right.
Like the entire time we're at Disney World, all I could keep thinking about is that meme from Tiger King where he's like, "I am not going to fiscally recover? I'm not going to fiscally recover from this." Every time Megan and I were like, "Let's get another churro. Let's go."
Interesting. I am actually planning on getting my driver's license changed. I'm planning on moving my permanent residence to Florida here in a few months. And I got to admit, one of the reasons why I'm doing that, I want the discounted Disney tickets that you get with a Florida driver's license. I'm looking forward to that. Being able to afford to go back to Disney. But Disney had a very interesting legal issue that kind of highlights the fact that we as lawyers sometimes wear different hats. And so what I'm talking about here was there was a doctor who went to the Disney parks. Let's see if I can find this article. I'm sure you are familiar with it. The doctor who suffered a fatal allergic reaction at the Disney World restaurant last year. And so that's obviously a horrible thing, nothing to make light of. You have an allergy. You went to Disney's website and said this restaurant was allergy free and had different kinds of food that did not contain certain allergens. So this guy, being a doctor, went to that restaurant. It turns out that this thing that he was allergic to was present at that restaurant and he died. And so he sued Disney for his widow sued Disney for his wrongful death. So right there, Chris, put on your lawyer hat. We're going to analyze this step by step. Why would the widow sue Disney and not the restaurant that actually messed up?
Well, the restaurant was in Disney, correct?
Right. It would have been its own separate restaurant, I would imagine. Well, maybe not.
No.
No.
If it was in Disney, it was within the Disney park.
I gotcha.
Or within the Disney Springs control. Right, like Disney Springs in Florida is a ancillary park owned, not ancillary. It's another location that's free to go to, that has a bunch of shops and a bunch of restaurants, but it's owned on Disney property.
Okay.
And it is controlled by the Disney Corporation of who can move in there. They're the landlords. Because Disney is a very, very overbearing parent. You have to do it the Disney way or you don't get to operate there.
Okay. I gotcha.
So Disney is the benevolent overlord of everything Disney.
And that makes sense. Disney owns everything. They're going to want control.
Same thing with like cruise ships, right? You have a steakhouse on a Disney cruise ship. So it's not Chris or Ruth Chris's steakhouse. It's the Ruth Chris at Disney.
Okay.
And so I would definitely, and as a lawyer, right, I'm going to sue the most rich defendant humanly possible.
Right. It makes sense.
Right.
Trying to get a good settlement,
try to get a
payday.
settlement,
You want to make sure if you do get a verdict that the defendant can pay the verdict. So you sue Disney. As a lawyer, I have no problem with this decision. I mean, it looks like if you did go to a restaurant and it was being advertised as not having these allergens, and
it doesn't have peanuts or whatever,
and somehow they didn't do proper cleaning. Or whatever. I mean, it could have been that another patron left the peanuts there at the table. We really don't know, but you have, I think, a solid basis to believe that they did not do the proper cleaning or whatever. I get why this lawsuit was filed. Disney defended itself by filing a motion to dismiss, saying you need to read the fine print because this person apparently had signed up for Disney Plus, which is a streaming service. I believe we have a Disney Plus as well. And when you sign up for Disney Plus, you're checking the box that says, I hereby agree that if I ever have any dispute with any of the Disney corporations or entities, it will go to arbitration.
It's insane. It's insane. Like, it's not like it's a master services agreement for like a recording software online that is very narrow, right? Oh, my podcast didn't record. You guys lost all my data. We got to go to arbitration. This is Disney, man. They have parks on every continent in the world. They have cruise ships that circle the globe all the time. You're going to tell me that by the fact that I like to watch Moana on my phone, that all of a sudden I can't sue the Disney parks because my dad died? I mean,
so here's
very smart lawyering trying to figure out how to get out of this, but not so good on the PR side.
So here's why I struggle with this, because I've been there as a lawyer. I'm kind of like knee deep researching a case, and I'm trying to see what kind of defenses can I bring on behalf of my client, because we're supposed to zealously represent our client's interest. And let's say my client is Disney. I'm looking for any argument I can make. So I'm thinking, oh, we have this terms and conditions here. What a great defense. So Chris, is it hard for lawyers? Should a lawyer, before they bring a legal claim, run it through marketing to realize, I wonder how this is going to look to the corporation Disney? Might this be a black eye on them and hurt their business? I mean, should lawyers wear the legal hat, but then also the marketer's hat as well?
Yes. Actually, yeah, because you need to represent your client zealously, right? You need to be able to step away from it and go, is this a good idea? Is this good strategy? Is this bad strategy? I don't know if I'd run it by marketing, but I would have called you, Joel. I would have been like, hey, Joel, check this out. I think I have a really great defense. What if?
Right.
Under the terms and conditions of the Disney Plus subscription, which everyone has that has children and that doesn't have children, what if we bring this defense saying, hey, you signed our terms and conditions that nobody has ever read on the face of the planet, because they just want to get to Bluey really quickly. You think this will work for me? And Joel, you would look me dead in the eye and go, Chris, that is absolute genius, but you're going to ruin your life because you don't want to bring that. You don't want to, way to read the terms and conditions. But bro, this is not the time.
Yeah.
This is not the time or the place.
The public is going to say no. I mean, one of the core issues there that just kind of, as a human being, you're going to think of is like, well, this doesn't seem fair. I mean, because I checked some box inadvertently, I probably have checked 1,000 boxes. At a certain level, shouldn't there be some kind of notice? And not just, oh, I threw it in the terms and conditions that I know you're not going to read because you really want to watch this show right now and your kids are all clamoring, saying, I want to watch this Disney show. Get it on now, Dad. You don't actually contemplate, am I waiving my right to a lawsuit in case my spouse is killed? I mean, the thought's not going through your mind right then.
No, and nor should it, right? There's some assumption of risk, right? You're on a cruise ship. There's some assumption of risk, right? You fall off or something to that effect. The assumption of risk, is mitigated when you do your due diligence or you advertise that this is gluten-free or peanut-free or allergen-free. Like, those signs are inviting lawsuits as well, right? When you advertise and say, this is a peanut-free establishment, right? Because peanuts is a very common allergy. I'm not trying to pick on people who are allergic to Reese's Cups, okay? I apologize. But if you're going to advertise that you're a peanut-free facility, you are now setting a legal expectation that if I go in there and I'm allergic to peanuts, I'm going to be okay to eat.
Right.
And I'm not going to die. It isn't the same as saying that this is like a cage-free facility or it's a it's a vegan facility and they accidentally get a little bit of lard or something. No, this is something that killed somebody.
I'm trying to think
if you advertise.
Right, I'm thinking of the restaurants. I think it was Longhorn at Steakhouse. Maybe it's Texas Roadhouse. And then there's also Five Guys Burgers. And they were known for having peanuts. And so many peanuts, you would just eat those peanuts and then throw the shells on the floor. And my thought was, from a legal standpoint, that's beautiful. Because think about it. You're not representing at all that you're allergen free. You are broadcasting to the entire world. We are full of allergies up the yin yang. So if you have any kind of allergies to peanuts, please don't come here, because you know our reputation, it's going to be all over the atmosphere. And so, yeah, but when you promote yourself as being allergen free, it's now you're putting yourself out there. You're issuing some kind of warranty saying these are going to be the conditions that you are going to encounter. So does it give you a heightened duty of care to make sure your facility does match up to what you broadcast, what you advertise?
Right.
It sure does. That being said, Chris, I do believe it was 2 weeks ago, we had our wacky case of the week being a person bought a chicken finger, a boneless chicken finger, and it actually wasn't boneless. And the court said, when you advertise your boneless chicken finger, you don't actually mean to advertise it contains no bones. It's like, what? No, absolutely, that's what you're advertising. But so I think these lawsuits might be contradictory, but nonetheless, this one is a little bit more serious.
No, and if you're having a discussion about a wrongful death at your park, I think Disney, trying to keep the motif of not breaking the illusion and not breaking any of the fourth wall, they would want to settle this.
Yes.
I went to a restaurant. You advertised it was peanut free. I went in there. There were 3 peanuts in my salad, and I ate them inadvertently, and I died. Like I mean,
own up to it, Disney. Own up to it.
Well, and even if you don't have to own up, you could sweep it under the rug really quickly, right? That's just a check, Disney.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Pay.
And that's less than a day's profit.
Yes.
Right.
Way less. That's an hour's profit, right? I know they make so much money. Pay that one out.
Right.
Your business will be hurt so much worse.
Apologize. Shut down the restaurant. Get it cleaned up. Get it back. Do this big publicity tour about how this is where families should go and families should feel safe and everybody should be safe at Disney, and pay out whatever money they're asking for in their lawsuit, because it's not going to be outrageous. It's not going to be $700 million, right? It's going to, I think it was like $5 million or $6 million or something like that. Pay the money.
Meanwhile,
shut the door.
The message that was sent out by Disney by filing this motion to dismiss, by making this argument, was we will try to hide behind the 8 ball because we really have sloppy service and we don't care if you die. That's kind of the message that was sent, and it's not a good message for people who are going to mortgage their house and take their dream vacation. I mean, those are contradictory messages, so you got to think a little bit about marketing when you make some of these arguments. I was thinking, I represented one guy on a case, and he ran a DJ business, and he wanted to form this contract which was a waiver. And at a certain level, your mind as a lawyer goes in, we got to disclaim everything. So there's absolutely no way this person can sue us, right? At a certain level, that thought goes through your mind. But another thought that goes through your mind is, if I'm trying to do a simple DJ contract and I have a 30-page document that I'm going to ask them to read through and sign, they're going to go to some other DJ. You just lost that business by over-lawyering the situation. So I do think that is a real thing. You can over-lawyer the situation and scare away business. So yes, you got to protect your client, but you can't destroy your client's business at the same time.
Yeah. No, and that's what... Well, you're not going to destroy Disney's business. I'm just putting that out there. Like, it's going to take like mass graves under the Magic Kingdom to destroy Disney's business. But you're not helping yourself out, Disney. Like, just settle the case and walk away.
Hey, one other case that was in the news this last week I want to throw out there was the Supreme Court. By the way, that last case was our Wacky Cases segment for the week. It was supposed to be at the end of this podcast. I will try to keep it in the correct order next time. I mixed up my outline. So that was our Wacky Case segment of the week. But I want to touch on a Supreme Court case, which should never be our Wacky Cases segment. That's why I wanted to make that disclaimer. But the Supreme Court blocked temporary. So this is SCOTUS blog, which is a great blog, by the way, to get your Supreme Court news. Amy Howe reported on this. And so the Supreme Court blocks temporary enforcement of expanded protections for transgender students. Now, I read that headline, and I am a constitutional lawyer. I didn't immediately understand what was going on. So let me unpack what happened at the Supreme Court, because you might, if you read that headline, you read transgender, and you read Supreme Court, and your mind went to, the conservatives are at it again. Not so fast. So what happened here was Uncle Joe Biden had this rule that where he said, we are going to change how we interpret Title IX, which is Title IX of the Education Act amendments. It basically allows for it prohibits discrimination based upon sex when it comes to, sporting events and secondary schools and collegiate. You know the idea. It's Title IX. Yeah. You gotta be fair between the sexes, right? You can't discriminate. If you have 5 guys sports, you gotta have 5 girls sports, right? That's Title IX. All right. They wanted to change the way Title IX was viewed to say it includes gender identity. So you can't discriminate based upon gender identity. How does that play out? If a biological male wants to transition to become a biological female, we got to allow them to then participate in the female sports. Okay, same with bathrooms. So these are the issues that Biden changed about Title IX. Well, a lawsuit was filed by various states saying, no, you can't change the law by presidential edict, right? You're not a king. We have a Congress. They pass laws, and you are drastically changing Title IX. In fact, I would suggest you're drastically changing Title IX in such a way that it guts Title IX, because Title IX was passed to promote female sports. Is there some reason why you want female sports separate from male sports? Not necessarily. It was done to create a fair environment so girls would go out for sports, because history showed that if you only had one sporting event, girls were not going out for sports. They couldn't be competitive with the boys. Don't blame me. That's just been the history of sports. All right. So one could say that these changes to Title IX is now going to gut the whole purpose of Title IX in frustrating girls from being able to participate fairly in their own sport. So the issue here with what happened with this Title IX changes was a lawsuit was filed by various states to challenge the constitutionality of these changes, and so the district court enjoined the entire law. Well, the federal government decided not to appeal the parts that dealt with gender identity, the changes. They just said the district court messed up in enjoining the entire law and not allowing the non-gender identity parts to go forward. And so this issue goes up before the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court says, no, we think that the entire law, it's all kind of wrapped up in one, and so we're going to let this case go forward down below, and we're going to allow the entire law to be enjoined. All right, so Chris, I know I went along on trying to explain what the Supreme Court did, but bottom line is the Supreme Court's decision had nothing to do with transgender rights. That wasn't before the Supreme Court. The only issue before the Supreme Court was whether the non-gender identity parts of Title VII should be allowed to go into effect while the transgender parts are being litigated below. Does that make sense? Did I explain that in an overly confusing way?
No, not at all, Joel. I think that these are very complex issues that we're dealing with at the moment, very complex things that are going on. And so a smashing headline like the U.S. Supreme Court rules against transgendered rights, that's going to snag some opinions. It's going to snag some clicks on Facebook. It's going to snag a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, we need to analyze what the actual decisions are. That's the point of us, right? To kind of cut through some of that to make sure that people understand what the actual issue is at the court.
So as of now, the Supreme Court has not ruled in any way on this case. They're just simply saying let it go forward below, which all parties seem to agree that, the parts on transgender rights should be litigated below. And so we'll have to wait another year before that case probably gets up to the U.S., maybe 2 years before that case gets up to the U.S. Supreme Court, in which, by the way, there might be another president from a different party, and so this will then become moot right away. All right, Chris, that is it.
Or there may be different Supreme Court justices, right? In 2 years, there could be Supreme Court justice reform that changes the face of the court. We don't know what's gonna. This is very Pelican Brief. Very Pelican Brief.
Yes. Supreme Court reform is something that if I were a betting man, not going to happen. But
yeah, not at all.
I could be wrong.
You never know.
So, all right. Hey, Chris, have a great week, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you, Joel.
Parties are a lot of fun, but throwing a party takes a lot of time and money. A Bash in a Box helps you plan an event like a professional. You can get everything from invitations, banners, and decorations all custom designed and in one place. We offer party packs for your events, so you can enjoy your time instead of being stressed. If you have a custom theme, we will design it for you. Visit abashinthebox.com and start celebrating.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star review. We need your love to help us continue highlighting the funnier side of the law. I want to give a special shout out to our Vice President of Operations, Wendy Oster, without whom, well, this entire operation would be a mess. Sean Wynn and 15-5 Features for making me sound way better than I actually do. Amy Neal of AN Cubed Marketing for our marketing efforts in getting the word out. And lastly, for all those crazy lawyers out there without whom I wouldn't have anything to talk about.